a little bit and just keep it going for 30 minutes. Now, surely, I mean, 4 hours here, 30 minutes here, and then you just pull it to the side of the stove and just let it go down naturally. It takes about 20 minutes or so. And even when you press the pressure release valve, there's nothing left in it, so you can just very carefully remove the bottom thing and open it up. And then take out the piece. Now, this has then just had the 1 hour and the cool down period. Now, when you look at this, let me shove it on there and show you this together. When you actually cut the skin off here and open it up, you've got all of this meat in between, and that piece of bone, and of course the debris, and the skin, which came off on the outside. That's what it looks like. So I chopped that up and put that as a seasoning in beans and things of that nature, and I've got this stock all ready and beautifully done. All I need to do with that stock, is just pour it through some muslin into a bowl like that, and whatever debris I've got is just strained out of it. And it's done. I mean, genuinely, if you put beef bones in there, and they're brown, you get this lovely amber-colored sauce out of it too. Okay, so that goes over there, and then I always pour that into a fat strainer. Now, when it pours into a fat strainer, then if there's any fat at all that's still on it, on the top, I'm going to be able to get rid of that because it's going to rise to the surface. In exactly the same way as I handled this, as I strained it constantly, and because there's a lot of debris when you strain constantly, it's a good idea to always put it through a sieve on the way. Come on, I'm trying to do this too quickly. Sometimes you get a bit of debris at the bottom there, and just change it slowly. And there we go. That's right, it's flowing nicely now. So just a little bit gets stuck in the bottom. Do you see the idea? That is coming through the bottom of that fat strainer so that the fat flows to the top and you get the clear stock in between. The idea is to be able to drop fat out, might as well do it. And I'll pour it in there because I want to get this into the same size pot as the other one. Good, okay, so that's a fair and reasonable idea. Doesn't take long, you see. And the big thing here is aroma. Of course, I put it in there. There we go. I know I got the fat out from that first one. So let's check the aroma. Let's come over here and then just show you just exactly why I think this is such a good idea. Thank you, Jeeves and Jeeves. There you are. Look. Marvelous. All right. Now, the big thing, remember the capital A thing for aroma? I can smell that chicken. There's nothing that gets in the way. Try that sometimes. Sorry. Try that sometimes and compare it with a can of chicken broth. Now, I've got nothing against that. I mean, I use it from time to time myself as well. But try it side by side. It's the most remarkable change. And you can feel all those little seasonings that I added, including the cloves. You can feel them coming through, and you can say, yes, it's worth it. Right? Now, golly, I'm sorry to wax so enthusiastic about that. That is so good. It's got a smoky kind of taste to it. When you're cutting down on bacon and that sort of thing. This goes straight the way through the whole dish, and it's wonderful. It's very good from that kind of food point of view. Okay, all right. Now, what I'd like to do is just go from this and look at two really unusual kind of stocks. These are fairly standard. These I call the standard. The next ones are unusual. Seafood one on the one hand, and the other one is really terrific. It's a vegetable broth, which I'm going to cook some ravioli in and show you how that works at the end. Okay? Let's keep going. Okay, now this is where the great restaurants are really coming into their own nowadays, because they've actually decided that the heavy sauces of the past may not be just what everybody wants, but they want fragrant, small, delicate little things just underneath the seafood and underneath the light piece of chicken, etc. I mean, just lifting it up, it's just wonderful stuff. Beautiful food. All right, so a little bit of oil with just that signature of toasted sesame in there too. And I've got a lot to do, so just take half an onion and chuck it in, and then about a cupful of celery, all right? And just put those two little items in the top of that. Now, just get those started, because it doesn't matter what you do when it comes to stocks and broths. It's a great moment to break that volatile oil out first of all. Remember, the big A is what we're after. All right, now, sometimes there's an aroma which isn't too good, and this could happen if you get fish bones from the fish market. Now, you say to the fish market, I want the freshest bones that came out today, and he said, certainly, sir, and he goes around and he brings these out for you. Now, they could smell a bit woofy. Now, woofy is British for on the nose a little bit, but not such a good idea. And it could get like that in the car somewhere. So what we do is this. Take some freshly ground sea salt. This is what I have in this salt mill. And quite a lot of it, until if you were to put your finger in it and taste it, it would taste like the sea. And then a lot of ice cubes. There were a lot of ice cubes in here in a moment or two. And then this is what I got, some bits of shrimp and everything else, you know, the shrimp shells, etc. Debris, basically. Shouldn't have to cost you anything. I just mentioned this and it'll cost you an arm and a leg. So here, then they come out when this is just fried, just a little bit here. Just simply take those pieces of fish straight from there, and if you were to smell them, it smells like the sea. It's ozone. It's the most gorgeous smell. And then go hunting for the shrimp shells and everything else, throw those in too. And then place in with this a little parsley. Oh, I'm so sorry, wrong plate, nearly did it. A hunk of parsley, a little piece of bay leaf about here, 2 strands of fresh thyme, not overdoing it. It's all going to be very delicate. And then some dill, just a couple of inches and 2 branches of dill, like that. It has the most great smell. And then 2 little cloves and about a dozen black peppercorns. All right, all in. Toss it all around together. You don't want high heat. You don't want high heat at all. The idea is just to break open those oil, and then you stick about 5 cups of straightforward liquid onto the top. And now, here's the other really neat thing about it. That only takes 25 minutes. Beyond 25 minutes, something bitter seems to creep into the bones, and it doesn't work well at all. So set that for 25 minutes. Now, this one has had 25 minutes, so you can get some idea of what it's like. It hasn't boiled. It's just very gently simmered. Right? Take a piece of muslin, a stainless steel sieve like that, hand sieve, and just gently pour that through into the sieve, just like that. Now, there's a lot of debris in there, but don't worry about it. That's going to have to be thrown out. I use old newspapers that are not going to be recycled. And they can just turn it straight into a newspaper, wrap it up, and sort of put it out. All right. Now, there is the stock. Now, come on, Graham. And pour it into a fat strainer and just leave it there to be able for the oil to come to the surface if there's any fat in there at all and you want to get rid of it. Great. Now the other one. This one is an absolute essential. Teaspoonful of oil again. And this is what the great people are doing nowadays. And thank God for them, because they are doing such fabulous work. Things like leek and carrot and celery and ginger root in an amazing way. This fabulous invention, this ginger, this rhizome. And here, the garlic. Isn't that nice, the way that's all happened? It's just sort of all naked and light. That's what it looks like when you see that thing when it's all wrapped up. And then the onion, of course, and a turnip. Have you seen the turnip? It's a marvelous thing. It's got a slightly sweet taste to it. And these things, all chopped up together, go to make a wonderful stock, totally vegetable stock. So there is the oil in the bottom with just that touch of sesame in there again, which is such a good idea. So that's a cupful of onion. I always give you all the ingredients, by the way, but if you ever run out of time, then there's the book. You understand that. There's a little half a cup of carrot and half a cup of leek and half a cup of celery. Isn't this exciting? My goodness. A cup of turnip. All diced up, and it doesn't matter. I use fairly small dice because The smaller you dice a thing up, the more extraction you're actually going to get from the vegetable during the 30-minute cooking process. So all of those are fried together at the beginning, together with the more pungent vegetables here, which are the garlic cloves, of course, and that's the old bash and chop. Just give it a bash. No need to give it a chop. Just straight up and in. That's with the ginger. Now, the way the ginger is cut, you actually take a grater, a little fine grater, and you just grate the end of the ginger root, like so that that will distribute itself throughout the dish. Now, the smell is gorgeous. Well, I'm sorry, the aroma. It just comes up and caresses your nostrils. And if you can imagine such a thing. Here, then, I need another 5 cups. Thank you. This is the little electronic eye under this thing, and it doesn't see, it stops when it's clear glass. All right, so pour that on the top, and then you've got the fresh herbs to go in, which are very small, almost insignificant. A little parsley and a few peppercorns, which we can just roll in the bottom, about a dozen or so peppercorns. All right, no salt, notice. Just stir it all around and let that simmer for just 30 minutes. At the end of which time, you've got something that looks exactly like this. It looks sort of, can you have a look in there? Doesn't it look grey in comparison with that? I want you to see how run down and tired it looks. I mean, I look like that sometimes in the morning. And why I showed you that is because I'm sure you're going to be tempted to say to yourself, well, I could cook with those. I'll use them. I mean, I'll make a marvelous little soup of some kind. Don't do it. They're dead. They've given up everything they've got. Their gastronomy was their whole reason for existence. Here, just pour, I missed that one. I did such a good job with the last one. And here is then the stock which comes from the vegetable stock. All right. And here is the chicken stock, and there is the stock from the ham hocks that we had before, and there is the fish stock. Right. Now, the big aroma is tremendous, but before we just get to that, I want to show you one last thing. See this? Now, that is an ordinary ice cube tray. Right? Now, what I do with an ice cube tray is make extra stock every time I make it. Pour it into an ice cube tray like this one, and then take out the cubes and write on a package, right here, ice cubes and the date that they went in. 6 months should be an absolute maximum that you'd keep things like that. All right, nifty idea, because then when you're ready to make a stock, you don't have to suddenly say, oh goodness, I can't do it, it's just too hard, and then use water, and then, it's all over. So here it is. That's the vegetable one. That's the ham hock. The chicken. Oh, the fish. And the chicken. Just a magnificent array of aromas. It is good stuff. Please try using them. And I'll show you what happens when you actually use it in a modern dish. Right? The modern dish that I wanted you to see here is actually a ravioli. And ravioli are terrific things when you just look down into there. They cook in that magnificent stock as against the thick cream of the classical kitchen. All right. So if you look at that and wonder what that does to the dish, and this is the same dish here, the same ravioli, but cooked in the 2 different styles. 488 was the first one. Now you drop down 300 calories. Just that's the difference in the sauce, the same content of the food. 12 grams of fat, so you've under half that. The 17 of saturated fat, 6. So we've got that down to 35% of calories from fat. Of course, you'd have vegetables with this as well, wouldn't you? I mean, you just wouldn't serve that as just a main dish. So when the vegetables get in, that compresses that 35%. Then cholesterol, 164, so that's down to 304. Look, whistle down in the sodium. And the dietary fiber is down to 2. Well, it's up, actually, 2, which is just as well with all that trouble. Okay, so there is the dish. Now, I get a chance to be able to eat this, and I just want to nosh into one of these. Actually, 2 of them, they stuck together. That's the vegetable broth. It has that sweetness of the turnip and the fresh herbs in it. It's just a delight. Do please try this. A lot of people are doing great creative stuff like this. Why not you? Okay? See you next time. God bless you. Bye-bye. Welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen. It's really 2 programs in 1. This is a series that appeals to your creative side. Food that is sumptuous stuff. How could that be? This is a program about people who want to eat healthy and reduce calories. Actually, it's about food with an aromatic quality that fills the nose. Oh, sure. But it's also about keeping my arteries clean by reducing fat. But it doesn't mean a thing if the food isn't rich and colorful. Maximize the flavor. Okay, but I must have healthy food that I can cook in minutes. I must minimize the risk. So welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen, where we get our heads together just for you. Well, welcome to the Saffron Kid. I mean, it's the smallest ingredient of the whole program today, and yet, you know, here I am. Well, anyway, a simple little way of cooking rice, a bit more than just simple, a fantastic way. I'll wrap around a tiny little recipe for you, and then actually build it up into an incredible dish for Christmas, something that I think would work so well, full of color and texture and everything else. You know, it's all very much the kind of thing that I've been trying to talk about. If you take a plate and you were to take something that you know has actually got fat in it, and you were to literally halve that item with fat, and then were to take vegetables, grains, any form of starch that you like, and throw color into it, and then increase the plate size, what used to be, this little dotted line around there, what used to be the whole amount of something that had fat in it, like meat in some way. But instead of that, you've thrown in stuff that you like to eat in, and filled the plate up. When you do that, it's amazing how in that one decision to do that one thing, you can get on with a kind of mini-max way of cooking. And it just works so well. And just to show you just how that works, both of the dishes today do that really famously. All right? Come and have a look and see this fabulous idea with risotto. Now, the risotto, you know, just fasten your seatbelts, it's okay. I mean, I'll give you everything you need to know. Must start with a stock. It's really so important because the rice has got to absorb the most incredible flavor because we're not going to put a whole bunch of fat into it. All right, a nice large onion, therefore, and celery tops, you know, the stuff you normally trim and throw out, and 4 carrots and a good large bay leaf. That's a magnificent one, isn't it? And then here, 4 little cloves nestling in there. Nestling? They normally nestle, but they nuzzle. Nestling in there are little cloves here, and then also about a dozen black peppercorns. And that would all go, just a little oil in the bottom of the pan, and fry up the onion and just release the oils from it. And then you've got the stock. Now, into the stock then, I would simply place these which are really the shin. You know, I can't get down that far, but it's this part of the animal, and it's cut across. When you speak to the meat market about it, say, get me a shin of veal and just carve it across for me, just, you know, about 1 inch or 1.5 inch slices, so that you've got a piece of bone like this one. Now, normally, this is the marrow in here, and they serve little tiny teaspoons so that when you cook this in the traditional l'ossobuco, which is from, you know, the northern part of Milan, of Italy, and you spoon the the fat up out of the bone as well. So that's the reason for the big calorie value. But in this case, we've simply got these. You don't do anything with them at all, except just to drop them down into the stock and then simmer the whole thing for 2 hours. All right? End of 2 hours, an extraordinary thing takes place, because the veal in that long, slow, moist cooking comes down, becomes extremely tender, and also gives up, of course, the meat flavor into the rest of the stock. So you've got wonderful vegetables. Where's the bone? It's gone. Oh, well, it was just a clean bone anyway. I'll show you how you get that off in a sec. Then just simply get the, love those handles, just pour the stock then. I had altogether 8 cups of liquid, and I want to get down to 4 cups of liquid. So you can tell by the simmering process, you get some of the liquid going off, which concentrates it, gives more flavor. So then just shake out this surplus liquid there, leave nothing. I mean, this is so aromatic and delicious. That's the stock, and just pull that across there. Okay, fine. Now, what I normally do, just in case there should be any surplus fat, and there really isn't in the veal shank, but if there is, just pour it into a fat strainer, and you will find that if there's any surplus fat there at all, it will come up to the surface. Now, it's always, when you make a risotto, you always keep the stock hot. It must be hot for the continuing addition. It's done in 4 different levels. All right, let's put just a half teaspoonful of oil in the bottom here. Yeah, a genuine half teaspoonful. And if you haven't seen this before, here we go again. When you're cutting an onion for any kind of dish, the thing to think of is how large should it be. And in this case, you cut it so that it looks about the same size as rice grains. All right? So that's a simple way of doing that. And I always save the little end for putting into stocks and things of that nature. And then up with it and down. Now, do you hear the sizzle? The moment that onion, in order to really go properly, the onion has to, if you put it down on its own, it would stew in its own juices. But with oil there and a hot pan, now it's bursting the oil sacs in the onion out, and you're getting this wonderful aroma. Can't do it any other way. All right, good. I need all of it. Fine. Now here's the rice. Now this rice is called arborio rice, and it comes from the Po River Valley, just north of Milan, north and across a bit, northeast. Here it is. It's a lovely fat grain of rice. This is long grain rice to give you some idea about how large it is, and this is long grain brown rice, you know, to just show you the different kinds of rice. I need a cup of it, and just ask for it by name, and then the supermarket, they're very cooperative supermarkets nowadays, really understanding that we want to cook. All right, instead of just buying things in 300-calorie frozen packages. And so when you've got that rice, just throw it in and just mix it up with the onions. It just does fine. All right. Now, into that, which is hot, you put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cups of a dealkalized dry white wine. All right? And then this... This is the world's most expensive spice. This is saffron, and thankfully, you don't actually use much of it. It takes 250,000 of the little stigma inside a crocus. They actually pluck the little strands out of the center of the crocus and put that into. Now, I need 1/16 of a teaspoonful. I mean, literally tiny. amount, but it is fragrant and it produces the color of my shirt. Just simple. And then roll it up, please, and keep it in a sealed bottle and in the fridge or in a safe, wherever you feel that you want to keep it. All right, beautiful, great color. And I like the powder rather than the strands because it has more of a density of flavor, providing you get it from someone who you can trust that isn't adulterated with turmeric or something. Okay, so that's on the heat there. So that's the first lot. Now, what happens is you just keep on going, and every now and again, when it gets stiff enough, you stir it up, and it gets stiff enough, and you add then another cup of the stock, and then you keep stirring it, and it takes just 20 to 25 minutes. Keep stirring it, and the arborio rice, the starch from that, comes off, and causes this incredibly luxurious, look at that. It has this smooth mouth round fullness which is so gorgeous, and it's just picking up the stock. So this one is what it looks like when you've got that last cup to add. So I'm just going to add one last cup to there, put it in, and stir it. Okay, now you see the stirring over a medium heat, keep stirring all the time. And this is one of those things where you're just going to have to do it. Just keep stirring like that. It's wonderful. I can taste it already. So then just simply fork the meat apart. It is so tender, so completely tender. Any pieces of odd meat, tired vegetables, make sure they're to one side. And there it goes. And if there's any strong skin on the outside, just nip that in about as well. There we go. And look, you can just pull it apart from the bone. It is just as tender as can be. Then just take that and just shoot that down into meat. Now, this isn't osso buco. I'm not even pretending it's osso buco, but it has the essential basic character of osso buco. And that's what I wanted to get at. Cheese. Now, cheese would be, the Parmigiano Reggiano, the Parmesan cheese, which is gorgeous, or an American Monterey Dry Jack. This is a very intriguing cheese. You grate it up, and there's a real temptation to fudge it here. What I do, I grate on this grater, which has got, it shows you how much actual cheese there is in there. And then all you have to do is just slip that back, and it's in. And it is so easy to get a big block of cheese and keep on grating away and saying to yourself, Mamma mia, and keep on stirring. Please, please, believe me, you can go more than you want to, and it really makes a lot of difference. There's just enough cheese in there to really feel it. Then, a cup of peas. Now, one of the classics in this part of the world, up north of Milan, is risi bisi, which is rice and peas, one of the great dishes of the world. So I've just borrowed a little bit from that as well. This is where you get different ideas. And freshly ground pepper. There's a full quarter teaspoonful of freshly ground pepper in there. You've got to be able to feel the bite of it. And a little bit of salt too. And actually, although this goes above what I normally say, it's got to go up to a quarter teaspoonful. We found that if you don't go the full quarter teaspoonful of salt, then it's kind of dull, and you regret it. Don't do that. And as you'll see from the numbers, it doesn't make that much difference. All right, on the side, this is it. It's served. It's done. So get a nice spoonful of it and dump it on the plate. Now, it's going to be solid. Don't look at it as being anything else but solid, a solid heap of food. And when you've eaten this on one of those cold nights and the rain's coming down the wind, you are going to know that you had a real meal. All right? So here it is. Let me just turn down the old heat again. And on the side, I've got, well, I'll show it to you over the other side as we compare the numbers. There we go. Doesn't that look nice? And on the side, you've got something called cremolata, which is really little wisps of fresh sage and a little scattering of the outside of the zest of the lemon, which just makes it, it just gives you that little extra bite. So what I was trying to do is halve the amount of meat. I only got 8 ounces of meat, 2 ounces per portion. That's really halved. And made up with all the rest, you see. Look at the numbers. It's just amazing, the actual numbers that we've got here. First of all, the original one, that's a l'osso buco with the Milanese rice and the sauce and everything else, 2,478 is down to 419 with the Minimax one. 8 grams of fat in place of 120 grams. That's 120 grams of fat out. I know it's a different dish, but it's borrowed from it. Only 4 grams of saturated fat, and therefore 18% of calories from fat from this dish, which is sensational. Then 70 milligrams of cholesterol instead of 1,100, and 460 milligrams of sodium, so it isn't really too bad. And then 3 in terms of fiber. And just a magnificent thing. You'll only need a fork for this. Look at that plump piece of meat that I have there too. I want to get the arborio rice onto the top there as well so I can taste that. Oh, I love it. And make sure that the lemon and the sage is there on the top. It just is a bright point. It just sparks it up at the last moment. Okay, that really is good. Think of the basic concept of the risotto and then springboard into your favorite dish that you'd like to create. You know, that's the whole idea. Okay, so I'm going to create one. I created this one with Robert Prince, who's my senior food associate. Great idea, brilliant idea of his in the beginning. And I hope you enjoy it. It's just great for Christmas. Oh, perfect. All right, great color and all that. Come on. I'd love to have some things for Christmas time because of the fact that, you know, over Christmas, some people have actually done some research. By the way, this is a butternut squash, and I'm just cutting the neck of the butternut squash into about 1-inch slices. Have done some research which suggests that, in fact, we put on about 7 pounds between Thanksgiving and the whole of Christmas. How about that? And that's about 24,000 calories over Christmas time. And that means we got 24,000 calories to lose. Of course, unfortunately, we don't apparently lose all of those just immediately. We only lose about 5 pounds. So you gain, you know, step by step every year. So how about this for Christmas? These are the discs. Unfortunately, not all discs are created equal. And so it'll look like that. You put that on a baking sheet and cook that at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes, and it's about 180 degrees centigrade, and they will come out and they will look just like that. You know, they'll just be a little browned on the top and all ready to use. And I'll show you how we those in a little while. Okay, now with the rest of this, you just simply take a knife down through there, scoop out the seeds, and then cut this up into 1/4-inch pieces, so it looks like that. Now, I admit to you, and you probably if you've any experience from this, you're going to say, it's going to take a little time. Yeah, about 7 minutes. So if that's 7 minutes over Christmas, get the family in the kitchen. Everybody loves it. All right, put just 1 teaspoonful of oil down in the bottom, and remember, just like the technique where we did before, just take half an onion and very finely chopped so that it, you know, about the same shape, a little bit larger, of course, than the rice, and but that will work well. And then, because, you know, we didn't add garlic to the other dish, but garlic is needed here because there's absolutely no meat here at all. This is a vegetarian thing. And it's not a bad idea every now and again to throw a vegetarian dish at yourself, really. It doesn't mean to say that you're going strange, not that vegetarianism is strange, but what it means is that you're moving towards something to recognize you don't always have to have a piece of meat between your teeth in order to be able to make a beautiful meal and have everybody happy. All right, so that's stirred in and that's going nicely. Now, there's some spices that are added here and to the rest of the board. These are the spices that I have. They are allspice. And there's a 1/4 a teaspoonful of allspice, a 1/2 teaspoonful of cumin, this is cumin seed, and a 1/4 teaspoonful of cayenne. That's what they look like in the whole pieces. And you can whiz those up, you know, in one of these things if you really want to. It's like a coffee mill, but you can put spices in it, make great coffee later on. And then you can, or you can get those various things already powdered if you really want to get to it. So there is the mix of the spices that are needed for this. And those are just simply stirred together. And they're used twice. In the first time, half of those spices are added to the, to the early frying of the garlic and the onions together. And now, especially over Christmas, the smell that comes out is just phenomenal. So that's done. Now all you need to do is just to take these, which is the rest of that squash. By the way, it's about a 2.5 pound squash, so that you should be able to get about a pound of hard squash into this dish now. Then you take stock, and this is a vegetable stock. I've done it before. It's in the book if you don't have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So about 8 ounces of stock goes into the top. Now the spices and everything else brew together for just 5 minutes. So don't overdo it now. This one's had 5 minutes, so let's have a look and see what this one looks like. When you pick it up on the end of a spoon, you put a knife through it, it resists, and it has a definite resistance. It's definitely undercooked. But it will be perfect then if you just gave it 5 minutes for the rest of the dish, because it takes that 25 minutes for the rice to cook. Okay, so take the same cup of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this, not a dry white, I've used this time a sweeter white wine with a Gewürztraminer and a grape in it, just to make it nice and sweet. All right, that's on the go. Just take the 1 cup of the arborio rice and drop that in, stir it up together, and then do that, just cook it until it goes really solid. And then, of course, add the next little bit of the vegetable stock to it. Just keep everything hot. Don't put cold stock in it, always hot. So that's the way it will look when it's got to that stage. Add the last 8 ounces of stock to that. Stir it all up. It must have that fantastic richness to it, which comes strictly out of the starch on the outside of the rice. It's amazing. Okay, now, I'm going to just sock into there, no meat of course, but here, look at that, Christmas. A sweet red pepper, diced up. I know they're a bit more expensive at this time of year, but there we go. And just half one of those. And then 2 tablespoons full of the stalks of parsley, which give that little, now look at the color in there. Half a cup of the grated cheese, again from that thing where you can't fudge, and save back a little cheese later. I've saved a little bit of the garnish here. I've got the parsley and the whole thing all together in order to be able to have that as a garnish over the top. So just a little bit left behind to scatter on the surface. And of course, the pepper. Now you've got some, watch the pepper, especially for the kids, because the cayenne pepper, which is called Creole torpedo, is definitely in that dish, but I also want to add that black pepper, which is so good with this kind of food. All right, rest of the spice goes on the top like pop, perfume for the plate. I don't know if you saw that program, but that's what it's all about. To add just a little uprising, at the last moment. All done and ready to serve. Now, this is where you get these little discs of the squash. Set it there, strip the skin off the outside. Did that before, save some time. And then just ladle it on. Just let some of that squash disc, you might get larger squash than I've got. Usually you can get larger ones than that. So it has a nice disc on the outside. Doesn't that look great? And then take a little of the little scattering of the cheese and the pepper and the parsley on the top of the. Oh, sorry. Looks so great. Okay, come along. I'll show you just actually how this compares with the nutrition on the other one. Now, because this dish, the classic one that I'm going to compare this with, notice how this one just pokes out there. It's rather like the sun, like weather forecasters that show it's going to be partly sunny. So it looks nice and it's attractive on the plate. Here's another dish which is almost exactly the same as this. This is with the risotto with 2 cheeses. and we put similar garnishes into it. You see how dense the cheese looks to little wispy on the cheese there. Let's have a look at the numbers and see how it compares. As always, the classic is the red one, and we'll go green. So we got 423 calories there instead of 700, which is a good start, you know, for the Christmas. 26 grams of fat is rather a lot, so that comes down to only 7, which is much better, 3 of which are saturated fat, as against 10. Now that means that instead of a 34% calories from fat thing, I've now got 16% of the calories total that I've got from fat, which is just so much better. Cholesterol wasn't bad at 41, but it's much better at 8. Any part of cholesterol is better. And then sodium is 385, all the way whistling down from 1,629. That's a lot. That comes from some of the dry, harder cheeses, which are very salty. And then dietary fiber is 3, and we whiz that up to 10, which is just, that's about as responsible to the old bowels as you can get, which I know at Christmas time one doesn't really think about, but there we are. So just the fork just goes straight through that wonderful piece of squash, and there it goes. Oh, this is so good. This is really neat. Well, please, understand. This, to my taste, is one of the greatest rice dishes ever created. How about that? Do try it on your friends and your family. God bless you, and have a very Merry Christmas. Bye.
Brazilian coconut shrimp. The ginger, cilantro, and coconut milk give this a sizzling tropical flavor. Garlic sesame halibut, the sweet garlicky taste of Southeast Asia. And snapper grilled in banana leaves, Yucatan style. The locals call this tican chic. I call it irresistible. Today, it's Fish on the Fire. I'm Stephen Reichland, and from the beautiful Esplendor Resort in southern Arizona, it's time to grill. Seafood may come from the water, but nothing brings out its briny succulence like fire. If you've ever been to the beaches of Brazil, the grill shacks of Asia, or the seaside towns of the Yucatan, you know what I'm talking about. Today's show takes you on a world tour of my favorite grilled seafood dishes. First up, coconut grilled shrimp from Brazil. Brazil has some of the most complex and interesting barbecue anywhere in the world. The idea for these shrimp marinated in coconut milk and grilled came from a restaurant in Rio de Janeiro called Platiforme. The dish was made with an Amazonian fish, but the idea was the same. The way you keep the shrimp or the fish from drying out is marinate it in coconut milk. You want to use jumbo shrimp. These are U8s. That means there are only 8 shrimp to a pound. And let me show you how to peel and devein the shrimp. So first of all, for peeling, grab the legs, pinch them between your thumb and forefinger, and just peel the shell off. It's a little bit like peeling a tangerine. And I like to leave the last piece of shell and the tail on the shrimp. Okay, to devein the shrimp, you make a cut on top of the vein, running along the back. Then you turn the shrimp over, and you make another cut along the top of the shrimp. And that sort of gives you makes a V-shaped cut. And what's nice about this is when you grill the shrimp, it will pop open. Also, the heat penetrate into the shrimp. You want to use a flat skewer for making the kebabs, and I'll show you why. You thread the shrimp on the skewer, and if you use a flat skewer, you can turn the shrimp without spinning. So to build these kebabs, a triangle of red bell pepper, a piece of onion, a piece of green bell pepper, then another shrimp. Please notice the shrimp all go in the same direction. I've said it before, I'll say it again, the human eye loves symmetry and organization. Sometimes you'll see people make a kebab like this with 2 inches of point at the end. Well, when you go to eat your kebab, you don't want to poke a hole through the roof of your mouth. So sort of bring the shrimp right up almost to the end here. Now let me show you how to make the marinade, what the Brazilians call a tempero. And it starts with fresh garlic and thinly sliced fresh ginger and diced red and green bell pepper. And those are the bell pepper pieces that were left over from cutting the triangles. For heat, a little jalapeno pepper and chopped fresh cilantro. What you want to do is puree the dry ingredients. And here's the ingredient that gives this a uniquely Brazilian touch: coconut milk, the heavy cream of the tropics. It's a cream-like liquid made from freshly grated coconut. Add white pepper and salt, vegetable oil, and a little freshly squeezed lime juice. So think about the flavor profile. You've got the heat from the ginger and jalapeno chilies, the sweetness of the coconut milk and bell peppers, and the acidity of the lime juice. So you just want to puree these ingredients together. Now pour the marinade over the shrimp. And you can see we're working over ice here. Always a good idea when you're working on a warm day outdoors. And because shrimp are so small, the marinating time is quick. 30 minutes to an hour will do it. Let me show you how to set up the grill. The process here is direct grilling, and as always, we want to keep it hot. We want to keep it clean. And to oil the grate, you've seen me do this before: a half an onion dipped in oil and rubbed across the bars of the grate. This gives you a subtle onion flavor, and it certainly looks cool. And one last technique here. This is an aluminum foil grill shield. You make it by folding over a sheet of heavy-duty aluminum foil. Place that in the front of the grill, and that will keep the ends of the skewers from burning. Man, this smells great. And if you have any extra marinade, you can just pour it over the shrimp at this stage before it's cooked. You'd never want to use a marinade that held raw shrimp as a sauce. One of your most frequently asked questions is, when do you close the grill lid? When do you open it? Well, when indirect grilling, it's always closed. When direct grilling, we use the rule of palm. If what you're grilling is thinner than the palm of your hand, you leave the grill lid open because it cooks so quickly, you want to be able to watch it. If you're cooking a big Bible-thick T-bone or porterhouse, close the grill lid so you keep the heat in. Cooking time here is really quick, about 2 to 4 minutes per side. Small portable grills like this or hibachi are great for grilling small kebabs like shrimp kebabs. What's happening here is you're caramelizing the meat proteins in the shrimp. So how do you know when the shrimp are cooked? Well, you can use the poke test, kind of poke the top, the shrimp will feel firm to the touch, or the squeeze test. That is, you want to squeeze the shrimp. Also, you can see the shrimp meat has gone from this sort of opaque gray to whitish pink. And to gild the lily, as it were, you can just drizzle the shrimp with a little extra virgin olive oil. These look fantastic. And there are your coconut grilled shrimp Brazilian style. And what you can do is just put some lime wedges to finish up the shrimp. So there you have it, coconut marinated Brazilian grilled shrimp. Nice. You know, the ginger, cilantro, and coconut milk really give you this great tropical flavor. So the next time you want to grill shrimp without drying it out, marinate it in coconut milk, as they do in Brazil. When choosing fish for grilling, I look for 3 qualities. 1, steak fish are great, fish that have a firm consistency that will hold up when you try and turn them on the grill. 2, I look for fish that have a lot of fat, a lot of oils, because this keeps the fish from drying out. And 3, I look for fish that has a lot of flavor. It's a problem that has bedeviled grill masters since the invention of the grill. How do you grill fish without drying it out over the fire? And how do you turn it without leaving half stuck to the grate? The answer is a simple tool and an explosively flavored marinade. Start with beautiful fresh halibut steaks. These are cut about 1 inch thick, the ideal thickness for grilling a fish steak. Next, the marinade. First add chopped fresh garlic. Then finely chopped or grated fresh ginger and chopped fresh cilantro. The Southeast Asian roots of this recipe are obvious. Then granulated sugar. What you want to do is pound these ingredients together. You'll notice I'm using a mortar and pestle. In many parts of the world, the mortar and pestle is used instead of a food processor, and it actually gives you a different and richer flavor. By the way, this mortar and pestle belonged to my grandfather. He was a pharmacist and he collected antique pharmaceutical equipment. It's nice to have him on the set in spirit. And you can see when you pound the ingredients in a mortar and pestle, they form this incredibly aromatic paste. The next ingredient is another typical Southeast Asian ingredient. It's called fish sauce. It's a pickled anchovy sauce, and it's used in Southeast Asia the way soy sauce is in China and Japan. Then add sesame oil and rice wine and salt and freshly ground black pepper to taste. What you want to do is just sort of mix these ingredients together. So here's your marinade. Okay, so spoon the marinade over the fish. It smells really nice. I love that combination of sweet, salty, and garlicky that they do so well in Southeast Asia. So what you want to do is coat one side and then turn the pieces over. And spoon the remaining marinade on top. Marinating time for the fish, 1 to 2 hours in the refrigerator. This is a grill basket. It's got a top and bottom panel connected with a hinge. And what you want to do is lightly oil the wires of the grill basket to keep the fish from sticking. Just go like this, and you can work over a baking sheet to keep from dripping oil on your cutting board. So take your marinated halibut and arrange it in the grill basket. Of course, you can prepare this recipe with other fish. It would be really delicious with swordfish. And bring the top part of the basket over, and you fasten the two halves together by sliding down this metal clip. To accompany the fish, a grilled vegetable side dish with a nautical theme, asparagus rafts. It starts with a quick basting sauce, finely chopped garlic and soy sauce, sesame oil, and black pepper. Whisk these ingredients together just to mix. Now, to make the asparagus raft, I'm going to start with thick asparagus stalks. Cut the end off, and you want all these stalks to be the same length. Now, using toothpicks or slender bamboo skewers, you want to pin the asparagus stalks together. What you do is just sort of come in through one stalk, second stalk, and so forth. I first discovered this technique at a fantastic rabatayaki in Tokyo, Japan. You do it at the bottom and then the top, and you can see why it's important to choose thick asparagus stalks. Now, the last step is simply trim off the excess ends of the skewers, and you can see what you wind up with looks like a raft. And in fact, if you're going to cook a pound or 2 pounds of asparagus, it's much easier to turn 4 rafts than it is to turn 20 asparagus stalks. Now, take that basting mixture that we made, soy sauce, garlic, sesame oil, and baste the asparagus rafts on both sides. Then sprinkle the asparagus with sesame seeds. I discovered this dish at what may be the single most expensive grilling restaurant in the world. It's called Inakaya, and it's in Tokyo. You have your asparagus, you have your fish. Let me go show you the grill. I've set up the grill for direct grilling, preheated to screaming hot. Now, the fish goes on first because it takes a little longer to cook. And simply place it on the grate in its basket. And the asparagus rafts go on next. And once the asparagus stalks are browned on one side, turn them over. The sesame seeds will toast by the heat of the fire. Now, people often ask me, well, how do I grill a whole meal on the grill? In fact, the vegetables are what you start with, because grilled vegetables served at room temperature are perfectly delicious. And once the fish is browned on the bottom, simply turn the grill basket over. No sticking, no breaking. Now I'll take off the asparagus. And I like to serve them with the toothpicks in place, but of course, you want to warn your guests not to eat the toothpicks. The fish looks ready. The way you test it, it's called the poke test. You actually press the top of the fish and you'll feel it break into clean flakes. So all you need to do is transfer the fish in its basket to a baking sheet. Remove the clip and remember to wear protective gloves. That clip gets very hot. Believe me, I speak of experience. And then just open the grill basket, and these look great. It helps to use a wide spatula. By the way, you can raft other slender vegetables like green beans and scallions. So just pull out the pins. That sesame flavor goes really nicely with the asparagus. That's really nice. You know, I'm such a sucker for that sweet, salty, garlicky thing from Southeast Asia. So now you know the secret to grilling fish without sticking. Cook it in a grill basket. This snapper grilled in banana leaf dish is inspired by a traditional Yucatan barbecue called tican chic. Tican means to kind of turn or turn again because the fish was turned. And chic means marinade. In this case, the marinade is something called recado rojo, red marinade. And it's made with a very distinctive ingredient called achiote. Long before there were grills and rotisseries, our ancestors wrapped foods in leaves and roasted them directly in the fire. The practice still survives in the Yucatan, inspiration for our next dish, Tican sheep. The banana leaf keeps the fish moist and adds a unique herbaceous flavor. This is really cool, so watch closely. The marinade starts with a staple of Yucatecan cooking. It's a spice paste called achiote. It's made with annatto seed, the same seed that gives cheddar cheese its orange color. The flavor is iodine and earthy, and it's totally unique. You can find achiote paste in Hispanic markets and in a growing number of supermarkets. Next, add fire-roasted garlic and fire-roasted onion, then cinnamon, cloves, and allspice berries. Black peppercorns go next, followed by dried oregano, bay leaf, freshly squeezed lime juice or sour orange juice, salt, and finally, a little water. Puree these ingredients in a food processor to a loose paste. Of course, in the old days, the ingredients would have been pounded together in a molcajete, a lava stone, mortar, and pestle. What you want to do is just spoon the recado rojo over the fish. And then spread it over the top of the fish, and if there's any extra, you can put a little on the bottom. It's hard to describe the exact flavor of recado rojo, this red spice paste. It's earthy, it's aromatic, you've got onion, garlic, the spices. It's sort of sweet and salty. It's really almost a microcosm of flavor. Once the fish has been coated with the spice paste, marinate it in the refrigerator for 1 to 2 hours. These are banana leaves. They're available fresh in Hispanic markets and frozen in most supermarkets. There are also mail-order sources. What you want to do is cut about a 1/2-inch strip off one end and set it aside. Then take an achiote marinated piece of snapper, place it in the center, and top it with